I'm a gooner. Oh, I love you!
Kyle Saka! It's Rice again!
And just like that, the good vibes are gone, playtime is over, back to panicking. This is Not That Kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we're coming to you after Arsenal's 1-0 win. 1-0 loss. Liverpool had the 1-0 win. I told John this like 30 seconds before we started recording. I have not finished my first coffee of the day yet, so I'm getting there. But we're coming to you after our 1-0 loss at Anfield against Liverpool, and now we enter a 2-week break. And I just kind of want to say from the top that, you know, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure John and Drew are on the same page here. What I say on this pod is always going to be what I think and what I see and how I feel, presented as honestly as it can be. I'm not going to do any narratives. We're not going to run any agendas. We're not going to sit there and wait until the thing that we've been wrong about for 2 years is suddenly right, and we play an I told you so game. So I just kind of want to say that off the top, and we're going to kind of get into this at the beginning, because it feels like maybe the prevailing thing here is not the game itself, which is really unfortunate. But we'll get into all that. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. Joining me is John, who you can follow on Twitter at 305cast. And John, how are you doing?
Better than I was yesterday. You know, I kind of needed to disassociate a little bit after the game, but now I've had some time to kind of digest it and come up with what I think is an overarching feeling, I guess, about what's going on.
Yeah, it's I don't know, dude. Like, it's the match itself was whatever, you know. But yeah, I think it's just like the kind of like the cloud of like emotion and reactions that really, you know, make it hard. But I mean, there's also parts of the match that like we'll go into that were kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think it'd be good, and you know, obviously we'll get into it, but I think there's a talking point about the way that Arsenal are kind of portrayed about how we approach the match versus the way that the discourse surrounding Slot and Liverpool played the match. And it's interesting to see how one-sided it is, and I guess we'll talk about that. But yeah, anyway, doing good.
And then we're also joined by Drew, who you can follow at Geechee Kid. Drew, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. Probably a little bit groggy, but that's cool. At least it's a holiday, so happy holidays to those of you that celebrate not having to work for a day, I suppose. But yeah, I'm good. I'm going to kind of want to save my thoughts for when we actually go into, like, you know, actual in-depth conversations about it, but I was just going to say I'm not... Yeah, of course I'm disappointed in the loss, but I'm still not, like, panicked about it. There's lots of reasons as to why I think but I do agree with you. I think both managers probably deserve criticism, but Slot, of course, isn't going to get any. But, you know, it's not... We don't podcast about Liverpool, so it's not going to be the main talking point, but I do think there's certain narratives that have already crept into both the media and some sections of the fan base that are a little bit frustrating, but like anything, I can see the pros and cons of it, so I'm sure we'll get into it, but yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I may as well just like kind of
rip
that Band-Aid off. So it's amazing to me how much criticism has fallen on Arsenal when Liverpool, the reigning champions, who have supposedly strengthened their attack in a stellar, sparkling, crystallized way, are not receiving any criticism for playing the way they did at home. Very within themselves, very calculated, really afraid to kind of bomb forward and do that thing that they played for a draw as well in a way. And Arne Slot kind of came out with, and this is where there is criticism on Arteta here, I think. And I think it's justified. And I think there is a valid argument that Arteta did not play in a very he was not very what's a good way of saying this? I don't want to say he was being a coward because I think that
it wasn't brave.
It wasn't brave. That's a great way to put it, Sham. And I think that we are the away side. So why are we the ones getting the criticism when Slot did the same thing and then came out? It was amazing. His quote was, if you played this game 10 times, we draw 8, Arsenal wins 1, and we win 1. And it's like, you're the home side. Like, you ended up winning good, fine. You came on the positive end of that variance that you will see when you're playing with amazing players like Soboslai and things like that, where you could just create something amazing like Liverpool did. But, they, again, home side, reigning champions, they ended up getting the 3 points, so they're not going to get the criticism there. But they played the way we did. And they weren't, it was a very boring game overall in that respect because both teams really didn't want to lose, and we know that they were capable of doing more. There's something with Arteta and the team selection, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. And that's part of, I think, the way that we approach and why you can call it not brave. Because, yes, while it's true that if you play this game 10 times, 8 times we draw, 1 time we win, 1 time we lost, we could have set up in a way that made it a little bit more dangerous for us. Maybe we lose a little bit more times, but then also gives us more of a chance to win as well, statistically. So, again, I think just to kind of get that off, because we're not a Liverpool podcast, like Drew said, I think Slot should be getting the same kind of criticism that Arteta's getting for whatever kind of, BS they're giving us about, not being brave and not attacking and not going forward and stuff, especially since they were at home. They're not going to get it again because they won, but it's there, and I've said my piece.
The in the first half, we had 51% possession. We had 0.34 expected goals to their 0.09. We had 6 shots to their 2, 1 shot on target to their 0, 85% passing. We were the dominant team. We had 17 touches in Liverpool's box by the time they had their first in ours, and it took them I think like the better part of 35 minutes to have a touch in our box. Right, that first half we were the better team, and kind of the overall kind of takeaway from the game in terms of statistics, right? They finished, I think it was like 53% possession, and we had 47. It was like 0.55 XG for us to 0.45 for them. Like, this was not the Liverpool that we've seen the first 2 games, right? They played in a different fashion against us. I think this was a match in which 2 teams that know that the team on the other side of the pitch from them is the team that they're competing with for the Premier League title. Those 2 teams approached it knowing that, and I think therefore played very cautiously, each of them, right? Liverpool weren't marauding up the pitch like they normally do. They weren't putting all this defensive strain on Van Dijk and Konate. They didn't leave the openings behind that they did against Bournemouth and against Newcastle. So while we did set up in a way that was more risk averse than what we could have done, first of all, I do think there's very legitimate reasons as to why we did that. But second, Liverpool are just as culpable in terms of this match being the chess game that it was. So, I think Slot is absolutely right when he said what he said after the match about how 8 times out of 10 this is a draw, and he's right. It was 2 teams that didn't really do all that much compared to what we know both teams are capable of, and at the end of the day, this was going to be a 0-0, and one absolutely insane moment of quality was the difference maker, and people are just doing a bunch of, result-based analysis without really kind of watching the match and thinking about what happened.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think, with anything recently, a lot of fans are going to be, reactionary in a lot of ways because, drop 3 points against, not drop 3 points, but a lot of fans will assume, we dropped 3 points against, our biggest rival for the title this season, City already lost again, we shouldn't have gone to set up to lose. Yeah, I don't think we approached the match in a way that showed we wanted to lose. And I think the first half proved that. My criticism of Arteta, and I guess this is kind of maybe shifting the conversation slightly, but I still think it's relevant, is that, and Sham, you just brought up a really great point about, that's probably the worst first half performance I've seen from Liverpool in a long time. They were not good, and I think it mirrors what I've said before. When I said in the previous podcast, is I'm not afraid of Liverpool at all. I do not think they are better than they were last season. I think so far I think they're worse. Whether that changes today because it's deadline day, and Isak is coming, Gahey's probably on his way.
Yeah, Fabrizio just did the here we go for Gahey.
Yeah, so I think when they bring them in, will that change? Possibly. I think some of the reaction from fans about the result is because they know Isak was coming at that point. Basically, it was a guaranteed, more or less. And then now you add Gahey to the mix. Maybe fans are thinking, well, that was our time to beat them because when they come to the Emirates next time around, they're going to have Isak, they're going to have Gahey. Like, the players like Verts are going to be settled. Like, what's going to happen then? But you can say the same thing about us. Like, we were missing God knows how many first team starters in the match. We still have to have new signings bed in, so obviously we're also going to improve. I think my issue is that when we saw how flaccid Liverpool were in the first 45 minutes, and I tweeted this immediately after match, I said, this result is on Arteta, full stop. And a lot of fans didn't understand why. And the reason why I said that was because when we saw how poor Liverpool were, we didn't pounce on that with making changes at halftime or earlier than when we did. And you saw, even though he didn't score, get an assist, or get a shot on target, you saw the rapid change and the immediate improvement in threat we had when Eze came on from Martinelli. Even just he was driving at players, beating players, getting into the box decisively. You can criticize why he didn't take that shot when he got into the box. Okay, that's a fair criticism. But even in those still small moments, you saw the threat elevation through him. And so I was saying that if you brought him on at halftime, I think, and then before Liverpool started to actually settle into the game, and then they started to kind of grow into it. Salah finally grew into it. Verts started to get into better positions. Gakpo seemed to be more threatening. So it kind of felt like a goal was coming before even no one was going to expect Zoboszlai to score an absolute worldie at the time that he did. Even though he scored that goal before. He scored that goal for Hungary before. He scored that goal for RB Leipzig before. So we've seen him capable of doing that. So when he stepped up to that free kick, it wasn't like a good moment. However, and on the day, he misses it, right? It's just like in the same moment from him, that's great. But I do feel like a goal was coming. Not in the way that it was going to arrive. But we didn't take the opportunity to find the goal before Liverpool were finally going to settle. Because, let's be clear, I don't think Liverpool were good overall. I don't think they deserve to win, but that's irrelevant. Because the point is, I think that's probably one of the worst performances I've seen from them at Anfield. And we didn't do enough to be brave and address that chance to actually go on and do something before they would inevitably grow into the game. Because Anfield's one of those places. Liverpool will feed off the cop. They will grow into it. They do have a ton of quality that inevitably will show up. So I don't think we took the chance that we needed to. And that's my criticism on our end, is that, and I think we've all said it before, I think it's one of Arteta's biggest weaknesses is to where he has to be more proactive instead of reactive when he makes changes, when he makes tweaks, when he brings players on earlier. There was no reason for Martinelli to play 70 minutes, like zero. Like little tiny things here and there that he can improve on. I just think it's a missed opportunity, and that was my frustration. But at the same time, I do not think it's telling on what the table could look like at the end of the season. I do still think Liverpool won't retain it. I do still think we have a chance to go on and win the title. It's just, I think it's just like, they're little frustrating points for me, but, we move.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, let's go on to the team selection, right? Because, we started with most of the guys we expected. The two big decisions were Marino starting in midfield and Martinelli starting at left wing. And, for me personally, it's not what I would have done, right? I would have tried to take a little bit more risk. But the Marino start, I can honestly kind of live with for that first half. because it's, we were expecting a different game. We wanted to play over their press. We wanted to use Marino as more of a focal point and win the duels in midfield. And, he basically was kind of playing as a support striker for Gyökeres at times. But Martinelli, I just don't understand that one, to be quite honest. And, even when he started, a lot of people are saying, yes, well, he's historically been very good against Liverpool. He scored at Anfield last season, helped get us back from that 2-goal deficit. But it just, I failed to see how the player that we've watched for the last few months could come up with a performance at Anfield. And I think Szoboszlai, even though he's not a natural right back, is a guy who had the physical capabilities to match him. And at that point, it's kind of on Martinelli to be a bit of a smarter and more creative player, and that's not in his game right now. So, Martinelli I had a big issue with, and, I just can't help but feel that we should have started Eza at left wing from the outset, because, yes, this is a guy who's just been with us for a week, doesn't really know the pressing structure, doesn't really, have a firm grasp probably of how we play out of possession, how we defend. I get all that. But you have Marino, who is directing the press, right? That's kind of why Marino started, because without him, our press would have been a disaster. So you have Marino handling that. And behind Eza, you have Declan Rice, you have Gabriel, you have Calafiori, who I think actually did great against Salah one-on-one, which I wasn't expecting from him. But you have those three players who can help you cover your side of the pitch should Salah and Szoboszlai start getting up the field. So I just thought the payoff of having Eza on the pitch and kind of risking some of the stuff off the ball was more than worth it for what he was going to bring on the ball. And you saw it, he did more in one touch than Martinelli did in 65 minutes, which, I think is pretty damning. But yeah, I do agree with your point, Drew, where I think probably we still could have won this game if Arteta had just kind of risked it a little bit and rolled the dice at halftime or maybe like the 50-minute mark and said, okay, I've seen enough. As Odegaard, you're coming on. Martinelli, Marino, you're coming off. Or, if Odegaard couldn't play 45 minutes, put on Nwaneri. But I just think, I think not taking a risk is a risk in itself. And that's something that not just Arteta, but kind of the whole of Arsenal Football Club at various times, various situations, have not seemed to understand over the last few years. And I think this was one of those moments where we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited, and Liverpool kind of made the decision for us.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that. I wasn't even necessarily upset with the lineup. I was fine with Marino playing as well. Like, if push comes to shove, my bigger issue, and my biggest issue is kind of what I said before. I just don't understand why we persisted with certain players on the pitch for far longer than they needed to be there. And it's not because I think Martinelli was horrendous overall. I think his out of possession work, his ability to track back actually came up quite well. I think there were moments where maybe he had the ability to recover in a way that most players in our system can't, and it helped us when Liverpool looked to break. So that part of his game really doesn't ever remain in question. His work rate, that's fine, but there were 3 or 4 big moments where his inability to make any decision at all cost us a potential penetrative, move into the box, a potential goal-scoring opportunity. There's that one moment that John decided to re-highlight again with video on WhatsApp when he had Gyökeres in front of him trying to find a channel to run into, and Martinelli doesn't make a decision, and then he runs into the same channel, the same 3-meter radius as Gyökeres, and then runs past him and just doesn't do anything. And that, for me, is the issue, because if you see Gyökeres running there, go away from him. He's trying to create space for you to run into. If you do not provide him with service, that's okay. That's what off-ball running is all about. So, yeah, if you're not going to thread the ball, okay. Tuck in on your right, try to have a pop-up goal. Maybe something else presents itself. Maybe be talking to the right, that moves focus off of you, across. Then you can slip the pass in. It's just like little moments like that drove me insane. But again, it's time and time again. And whenever he gets into the final third or in and around the area, he just does not make a decision. I would rather Martinelli make a bad decision than try to make up for it than no decision at all. Indecision is worse than I think than making a poor decision. At least from a poor decision, you can at least maybe try to rationalize it. If you maybe should have shot instead of passed, maybe you should have passed instead of shot. Like anything like that, okay. But just be decisive. And his lack of decisiveness is, I think, and it remains, and I just don't understand how it's even possible at this point. It remains his biggest weakness. And I think that's why when we brought Eze on, it caused so much threat, because he doesn't lack decisiveness. He gets the ball, he knows what he's going to do. Whether he knows he's going to pass low, knows he's going to try to drive this player, you can see how he's already wired. And we got a little tidbits of that from him in his 20-minute cameo. So, yeah, I just think that, for me, again, the biggest takeaway. But, yeah, I was fine with the lineup. I do think, I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I do think that was also, one of Rice's worst performances for us in a long time. I don't think Rice was all that good. I think he started well, but he faded quickly. I thought Zubimendi, I think, was okay, but you can tell in that particular match where he may have struggled with the physicality a little bit more. He'll get used to it. It's just kind of the nature of the Premier League. But like I said, again, I'm not like, flying off the handle and talking about jumping off buildings or anything like that. I think the evidence is still there that we will get better and need to get better. But Liverpool still aren't this phantom menace that we can't cope with. So we'll see.
Yeah, John, do you want to go in on that?
I mean, there's a lot that was said there. I think that I agree with you, Sham. I think that that starting Martinelli was not the way to go. I think maybe if there's a devil's advocate argument, it's that Liverpool, his results against Liverpool is one of them. I think maybe, I couldn't help but thinking maybe this was Arteta kind of letting Martinelli start and do his thing so that he can go, okay, I gave you your shot and you didn't take, and it wasn't good enough, or whatever. Maybe this gives him the ability to start Eze on that left now without like really making the player kind of feel too much resentment, right? Because he's sort of, not that it hasn't happened now. I mean, I think there's plenty of evidence out there to suggest that Martinelli should not be the one to start on the left for us, and hasn't been for a while. And I've said that. I think he's a very one-dimensional player, and it's not just lack of decisiveness, which is 100% true, Drew. I think it's also when he does make a decision, I don't think he has the tools to consistently create issues like someone like Eze could. I mean, we saw it yesterday, and that was obviously a small sample size, but only for Arsenal. Over the course of their careers in the Premier League, it's been consistent on Eze's part and on Martinelli's part. Martinelli just does not have the ability that we're going to need on the left, evidenced by just the history that he's had with Arteta's team and how teams set up against us and what they do with us on the right versus on the left. How they can basically, in many cases, just ignore our attack on the left because they know that it's not really going to come out to anything. And we saw that again yesterday. And then and before it was, well, maybe he just doesn't have anyone to get the ball to. Maybe because, Kai is always dropping deep and he's not really providing enough in the box or something like that. So what is Martinelli going to do? Or, and then before it was, oh, well, maybe because Xhaka's gone and Rice doesn't have enough of the creativity to create for him. And it's not, eventually you just need to, you run out of excuses and you got to look at the player and go, it's just not what we need on that particular part of the pitch or that role. And it's nothing against Martinelli. I think he's a good player and he's still young, relatively compared to what he used to be. Well, I guess that's the way age works. But yeah, I think that, he's still a young player and maybe there's some room for improvement. But we're talking about a team that, is going for a title and major honors right now. And he has had plenty of opportunity to improve. And I just haven't seen the improvement from him. And this is, I feel like, a conversation we've had before. I don't see the improvement from Martinelli. I've in fact seen some regression, and it gets to a point where you're seeing the same mistakes over and over again. That video I sent everyone, it wasn't just to show that he's not decisive. It's to show him running into a blind alley with his head down again.
Yep.
And that's something we see time and time again from him. And so I don't want to beat up Martinelli too much. I think his performance speaks for itself. But I do think picking Martinelli, assuming it has nothing to do with kind of, hey, I gave you a chance and you messed it up or whatever. I think that it shows that there was a little bit of fear. And fear isn't always a negative thing. Fear can be a survival instinct. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. I think playing for a draw makes sense on paper. The problem is exactly what Drew said. Once you notice that Liverpool are not on it and they're there for the taking, fine, you start Martinelli, but bring on these other players. Do it quicker than you did. Fine, all right? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there, even though maybe there's arguments that you shouldn't have that, right? I go back to that comment that Slot made, all right? About out of 10 games, Arsenal, they draw 8, all right? Is that your goal? Is your goal to go there and draw 8 games to draw? If that's your goal, guess what? You did it and fine. We got beat on a spectacular piece of solo skill from Soloside. But if your goal is to win, because again, we're talking about small margins in this league. How many times do we need to learn that lesson?
Yeah.
It happened to Man City a couple seasons ago. We went there for the draw, and then it was whatever, and we could have won that game, and we didn't. And look how close we were at the end of the season. Those points were extremely relevant, and now here we are again. I hope not, but it's like there's some lessons I don't think we learn. It seems like we don't learn. Obviously, the caveat is there's plenty of games to go, right? But that's just my thought.
Well, I'll
sorry,
say
Drew.
one thing, and I think maybe hopefully it'll also reference what Sham is saying is I think so. So the narrative that I'm not saying John is saying this. I'm saying a lot of people in media or other fans saying this. The narrative that we have to go to Anfield and win is not correct. Pep has won at Anfield once, and since he's arrived at Man City, he just doesn't win there. Anfield's an incredibly difficult place to go to win, like some other grounds historically in the Premier League. What I do think, and I agree with John, I think if the goal was for us to get a point on the road, that's not necessarily a bad overall broad plan to go and try to get something out of it. Yes, like if you can deny Liverpool access to 3 points while picking up a point of our own, okay. Where the landscape shifts is that when you see that there are more points to be taken based off of what you see in front of you, that's when you have to readjust the plan.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's kind of where my biggest criticism lies is, I'm fine with saying, and we've said it before, like, I thought we would win, but I would have been fine with the draw. Because I am fine with the draw, because a point at Anfield's fine, but when you see, like, and I hate to always bring up historical references, but that's how my brain is wired because, that's how I'm on the spectrum and that's what I studied for however many years. When, like, if you're, in terms of, like, generalship, when you see that you can exploit your enemy and you find the weakness, you have to attack the weakness. Yeah. And that's what made people like Alexander the Great and Napoleon so good at what they did is because they would be decisive in that action. They would see it and, okay, that's how we're going to win the day. Go off and win the day. And that's where I feel like the 99% of my frustration yesterday is based off of that.
Drew,
go on.
Don't you think that there's a good argument that window that we should have seen that Liverpool were there for the taking was before we even kicked the ball at that first pitch based on their performance against Newcastle, based on their previous performances, based on what we knew about that team going into it. We felt very confident, especially defensively. So I think there's even an argument that, while we should have changed mid-game, we should have gone into that game. And that's what I think the bigger concern is that the fans are having, is that it was there from the get-go. If we had just come out and put it to them, bullied them in the midfield, which is what I thought we were going to do when I saw Marino, that decisiveness should have been before kickoff.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. So for me, like I said before, we talked about it in the last pod. I was fine with Martinelli starting because I understand the why. Because I think the expectation was that we were going to have to be more direct in hitting Liverpool on the counter because we didn't expect Liverpool to be that flaccid again. And I think that was maybe, and it's hard to know that you were going to get that same Liverpool like the Liverpool has not gone in to improve their performance. I think that again that was worse yesterday from them than they were in the Community Shield. It was worse, in their opening other performances in the league. But I think what I would have rather have done, I understand why Marino started. I think a change that maybe would have been slightly better is maybe you start Eze instead of Marino, and you still have Martinelli play, because then you're not stripping yourself from creativity centrally. You're getting a player who smarter in the final third. I don't think Marino played poorly. I just think you're going to get a different attacking performance from us if Eze was playing centrally. And I still think at that point, then you would maybe have a player in Eze who could maybe then try to hopefully take some of the burden off of someone like Martinelli and then be that creative fulcrum, and then also try to pick out the runs that Martinelli may have been able to find if he wasn't driving play on the left. And then if that wasn't working out, then you can maybe shift Eze left and bring on Odegaard for him instead, and then you still have another increase in, say, creativity or ability to, again, lead the press or find those moments. I don't know what the better answer would have been, but I do agree with John. I think, yeah, as a manager, you should say, okay, they've not been good. Let's maybe go for it. And then if you lose, you lose. I think, yeah. Because what's the difference now? No one was going to know we were going to lose by a moment of the same quality from the jumper slide, but at the end of the day, we still did lose. So it didn't change anything.
That's the bad taste.
Actually changed.
That's the bad taste I think people have. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, Cham, but that's, I think, the bad taste that people have in this one is that, it was there. Had we gone for it and lost, like, that would be one thing, right? It would have been like, okay, they're the league champions. We've seen what they've done, the reigning champions. We've seen what they've done. It's at Anfield. We're, fine. We really, really went for it. We created all these chances. Their keeper had to save a bunch of, it would have been, and we started as strong as we possibly could. But maybe they just need some more time to gel, but we're all feel a little bit more hopeful about it. But here it just feels like we left points on the table and we got gut punched. And while we can sit at the end and rationalize it and say, well, I can see all these intellectual reasons why it made sense and why statistically it was maybe safer to do that, and we didn't really play bad. It still feels like a gut punch, and I feel like that gut punch may have been less if we actually just went for it. And I don't know how the players feel after that. I'm sure they probably feel gut punched as well, and I don't think that that's probably good either. But that's another thing.
I think I have a little bit of sympathy with Arteta at the beginning of the match because you have one idea of what Liverpool are going to do because they normally play with one gear, which is just, heavy metal. We're coming at you guns blazing. And, so I understand starting Marino in midfield. I still would argue against starting Martinelli, but even then, fine. If you think that's how the game is going to go, and if you think you're going to be under pressure for 90 minutes, then fine, okay. Because Havertz is out, Saka's out, Odegaard can't play a full match. Like, if Havertz and Odegaard were fully fit, we're not talking about Marino and Martinelli today. But you have all these injuries. And you kind of, I think people are kind of just overlooking a little bit of the out of possession aspect of this. Where if you're going to get anything out of a trip to Anfield, you have to be really, really, really good off the ball. And so I think playing Eze at the 10 is a little risky, especially because there's only a handful of guys at Arsenal who know how to direct the press, and that's Odegaard for me. That's Marino. Maybe that's Rice, but then you have to start kind of pulling Rice out of position a little bit so that he can lead the press against Liverpool, and then that leads to its own problems. So I think keeping that in mind, Marino makes sense. The problem that I really have is kind of what Drew said here, where we just didn't react quick enough to what we saw. And so I think that's the part I struggle with because, honestly, I think I would have taken Martinelli off after 15 minutes. I'm sorry. Like, the thing with Gyökeres that you guys have mentioned in the 11th minute, that's basic football.
You don't have to apologize to me, man. I would have taken him off before the game started.
Like, Gyökeres is making that run. There is that moment where he looks like he's about to kick it into another gear and really start sprinting. And that's the moment where you have to pass him the ball and play him in behind. If you don't do that, that's okay. That's an option that you can take. Do something with the ball then, right? Don't dribble toward the guy who is making a run, and then when he drops back, ignore him, and then just take the ball to the by. Like, this is what Martinelli does whenever you put him on the ball now. He just dribbles straight to the byline, and he's like, okay, what do I do here? And, it's just transitioning a little bit. It's so damning watching Ez's performance for 25 minutes and watching what Madueke did on the right side of the pitch today, right?
Fantastic. Madueke is fantastic.
Madueke, and the thing is, right, there was another way to win. Yeah. Mosquera is excellent, and we'll get to Mosquera as well because he deserves his flowers for what he did.
There was a lot of positives yesterday, so it's not all doom and gloom.
But this kind of part of it, where this game was taking shape, right, and the avenue to victory was there, and I think for me that involved just feeding Madueke the ball as often as you could, and we didn't do that. We stuck with Marino for 60, 65 minutes when he started flagging. We didn't respond to Liverpool putting Curtis Jones on the pitch, and he kind of would start nestling in between Rice and Zubimendi very awkwardly. We didn't deal with that until it was too late. But for me, I really would have done something to either replace Martinelli or put someone on the pitch who's going to give the ball to Madueke every time he gets it. Because he was just going at Kirkes, and he'd either take the ball to the byline and cut in or play across, or he'd get into the final third, cut in on his left foot, and shoot. And that is the key to good wing play, is knowing what you are going to do before you touch the ball. And Madueke just seemed to have that down pat, whereas Martinelli he's a Michael Scott sentence. He'll start and then you just don't know where it's going to end. So yeah, I'm so spooked by Martinelli right now. But kind of on the flip side of that, I think I was really, really impressed by Madueke today. He really had the beating of Kirkes, looked like our most dangerous player for most of the match, and I do tend to think subbing him off was an incorrect decision. But yeah, what did you guys make of Madueke's performance, and kind of where does this put him for you among our wide options?
I think he was fantastic. I thought he was especially in that first half, I thought he was our best player. I know Rice didn't have a good game. I thought there were some moments where he was good. I thought that, Zubimendi had some good moments. Even, Martinelli had one or two, especially defensive moments that were good. But every time Eze got the ball, he was trying to make things happen. Not Eze, well, even though that as well. Every time Madueke got the ball, he was trying to make something happen. He was giving constant problems to the left back. He was getting into dangerous areas. He was really, really fast and dynamic, I thought. And what that tells me is, and it's something that we talked about in the pod before. Like, this is a moment for players to make a statement about their role in this side.
Yep. And
one of the players specifically mentioned was Madueke. And I thought Eze as well, because I figured there's no way he's not going to start. But here we are. Or Martinelli. All right. So who made a statement? Mosquera made a statement. Madueke made a statement. And in many ways, Martinelli made a statement for different reasons. And it's amazing how clearly his role on the right is a lot better than it was on the left, because we saw him play on the left a little bit. It was okay, but we knew from the last game, if he goes on that right hand side, he looks a little more dynamic. He's creating a lot more problems, and that's exactly what we saw. And it's kind of heartwarming in many ways, because it always feels good when you know that you're right. And for a long time, we were saying Saka needs a viable backup. And this is exactly why. If he goes out, there was not much of a drop-off in terms of quality on our right-hand side. It's a crazy concept, I know. But yet, look at this. We saw it play out in front of us on one of the hardest stages, if not the hardest stage in the Premier League. And we saw it with flying colors. And I really hate to think about, because it makes me sick, about if we could have done better than Sterling, which surely we could have, what it could have looked like last season. I don't want to think about that, because it's, would have, could have, should have. But I think yesterday was a prime example of how, when you have enough quality as a backup, not only does your level not change, but I think he brings something different than Saka offers. And I know Saka likes to cut in a lot. I think there was a lot of dynamism that I think they have difficulty dealing with in many regards. That Liverpool have difficulty dealing with. I think Saka sometimes tends to get defended out of games, and maybe that'll happen with Madueke. It was just because he was kind of the newer player, and they didn't really have as much data on how he was going to operate within this Arsenal side. But I didn't see much of a drop off on the right, and that's without Odegaard. I'm wondering if Odegaard had started that game, how much more dynamic that right hand side would have been even further. So if he could do that with Marino, what can he do with Eze or Odegaard? And that gave me a lot of confidence.
Drew, how about you? What did you think of Madueke?
Yeah, like I said on Twitter, and I don't remember if I said it in the group chat during the match, but yeah, I agree with John. I thought he was I thought he was our best player, particularly in the first half. I think it showed why we made the investment in that player. It also showed that the cover for Saka is the difference between when Saka was out last season and this season is kind of night and day. And I'm not saying that he's the one area won't go on to be a decent player, but Madueke had multiple moments where again it shows that kind of attacking decisiveness I was referring to that Martinelli lacked, but Madueke didn't. I like the fact that he wasn't afraid to run at Kirkes. He identified that as an avenue as to where that could be exploited, and he did it with confidence. He's still a little rough around the edges just in terms of some actions that he can maybe do better, but I think it also kind of platformed to show that we don't have to worry about whether it's rotation or injury crisis, or there might be some sort of avenue as to where he could also end up playing on the left when we do rotate, and it would probably be justified, though it would be a different attacking dynamic with him there. It's still, you have faith in that. So I think I agree with what you guys have said. When he showed it at Anfield against the champions, wasn't shy about it. Yeah, I don't have much more to add apart from I just think it was kind of an advert that some fans maybe still needed to see from him to have confidence that they're not going to be upset when he does feature from in the 11 rather than coming off the bench. I thought he was really, really impressive. I'm sad he didn't get a goal because he did have a few good moments. That half volley at the near post with his left foot that got parried away well by Alisson. That was a really good moment. It looked like replay showed it was going to go in if Alisson didn't make the good reaction save. So, but also he's not afraid to shoot, and I think too many of our players are, and that's why I like the fact that we brought in players like Madueke, but also Gyökeres. I think one of the reasons fans liked Gyökeres' first goal against Leeds during the run of play is because when he tucked into the box, found the space to shoot, he shot it. And even if he didn't score in that moment, it showed the desire to get shots on frame. And Madueke also has that in him as well. And I think we're in a space now where we just need those players to come in and act decisively. So, I was impressed by him. Saka, who knows how Saka's going to recover over the break, what it's going to look like, in the next few matches after that. So I do think if he's not, obviously immediately back in, we can be fully confident with Madueke giving us similar, if not better, performances moving forward, and that's kind of all you want.
Yeah.
Drew mentioned something really quick I just want to touch on. Sorry, Sham. Because I tweeted this as well. The fear, or I keep using the word fear. I don't know what it is. I'll let you guys come up with what it is. The fact that our players do not shoot, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. There's so many opportunities that we have, and there's just this hesitance, let's call it, to take a shot on. It's not just Odegaard. We even and it's probably not Eze as well, but we even saw it with him. There seems to be this hesitance for us to actually put our foot into the ball towards the general direction of the goal, which is, I don't know a lot about soccer or football, but seems to be the aim, right? You want to get it in that general vicinity in a hook, because you got to win. You need those goals, right, to win the game. That's how that works, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So why are we so?
That is the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So why are we not doing that thing that allows us to potentially win these games? It seems like we're so afraid. I don't know why. I don't get it. We have the quality there, and it's not. It's almost not even new. We've done that before. Even during the Wenger era, we had players like Ozil. It's why aren't you shooting more? And I mentioned that before. It's like there's some players that you just wonder why they're not shooting more. And with us, it seems like a lot of our players, we wonder why they're not shooting more.
Yeah, and it is weird because that as a moment, I was a little shocked that he didn't pull the trigger because it looked like it was right there for him.
Yes and no. Shocked because like a player should be doing that, but not shocked because we don't do that here. We don't shoot the ball here. Yeah. We try to get a set piece and win that way.
Even Martinelli, his first couple seasons at Arsenal, he was a shot monster. He was like, I think, taking like 3 or 4 a game. And then
Odegaard used to blast him outside the box, and then it was like, well, that's not a thing we're doing anymore, or
Yeah, I think there's I think part of it might just be a big commitment to kind of making sure we're not countered on. I don't know. I mean, just like...
But wait, hold on. We have like the best defense in the league. What are we so afraid of? The ball getting to Zubamendi and Rice and Saliba and Gabriel and like the best wing backs in the league? Like, what are we actually afraid of happening? Like,
I don't know.
What, like, Raya's going to forget how to touch a ball, like, when it comes near him? Like, and this comes to the, I don't want to call it, like, fear or cowardice or whatever, but, like, okay, I get you want to keep possession, but, like, if you're in the box, that's the point. Shoot the ball. If you miss it, that's why we have the best defense in the league. Like, trust the players behind you. Either they're not being coached to shoot it, or they're afraid they are and they're not doing it. Either way, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like sometimes when, like, systemically you're set up to be so wired for control, like, sometimes you can't get out of that wiring at this point. There's also that moment when Odegaard came on when, as they found him in a really good shooting position, it was on his right foot, not his left. But instead of just having to go with his right foot, because he was open to shoot, he dawdled, and then the chance kind of went begging. And we've seen that from Odegaard before, but as John said, we didn't always used to see that from Odegaard. That was not part of his game. In the season where he led us in goals, he would have taken that shot 10 times out of 10. Even if he didn't score it, he would have, open chance presented itself, he would have taken the shot, right? So I do think at some point, again, like I said, when the system is what it is, and sometimes it can unfortunately strip you of doing things that you should be doing. And I can understand maybe we're a bit afraid to get hit on the counter. I agree. I don't understand why we're afraid to get hit on the counter. Both Gabriel and Saliba can recover quite well. Raya is arguably top 2 or 3 keepers in the league. You've got good recovery pace from both sides at fullback, no matter who's playing. Maitland, Bluesky isn't exactly like Slider's pace. White's got some decent pace for his size. Timber can recover really well. Calafiore recovers really, really well. Rice covers ground constantly. We've seen that time and time again. Zubamendi showed he's got some decent recovery pace when we played against Liverpool. So yeah, there's ways to respond to being hit on the break. But if you're in the box and not shooting, that at that point, that's silly. Like, I understand if you don't want to shoot from 35 yards out, of course, because at that point, if it deflects and bounces the other way, then not great. But when you're in the box or just outside the box and you're not shooting, that is just like, that's for me, like, also as like a coach, that's frustrating. Like, because if my players they're open and they don't shoot and they just would rather either recycle it back. How many times have we gotten to a really good position and just recycled the ball back? Or how many times have we had a chance to play a ball into, like, there was one moment in the second half when Calafiore was open on the left. We really had a chance to go and put a ball into the box. He had the acres of space to do it, and instead he recycled it and ended all the way back up to Raya. And I'm just like, well, what was the point of that? Like, just same thing with putting balls into the box. Same issue we have with crossing it. I get you want to have control, but sometimes you are too risk averse, and it can be detrimental. And that's like very late stage Wengeritis that we have, because that was the habitual criticism every week under Wenger and the final years was players just aren't shooting anymore. And if you're dodging moments for the sake of control, at that point it's too much. And I've said this for years, the difference between Arsenal and a club like Barcelona, who also who for years demanded so much of the ball, is they always knew how to flip the switch and go from control to direct actions. to taking shots, to looking at the moment, even a half chance, and they'll shoot. Like,
Man
give
City.
Jamal a half chance in and around the box, he'll shoot it. If it gets blocked, so be it. If it gets deflected out for a corner, so be it. If he blazes over a bar, so be it. But he'll at least say, I'm open to shoot, I'm in good range to shoot, I'm going to shoot. So, and that for me is why I think fans enjoyed Gyökeres's goal so much against Leeds. Why fans hope that Eze can bring that to the table, because we've seen how many times for Crystal Palace that he's gotten in and around the area and he has to go a goal and he beats the keeper. I mean, we've got the players to do it. Not that necessarily would change the performance against Liverpool, but it's just something I hope we see from us more and more this season, because adding that additional threat that the defenders have to consider, I said this before, can help us change with our own attacking dynamic, especially when teams sit deep. So, yeah, it's just something for us to work on. But that's kind of all I have to kind of say about that. So.
And that's the thing, right? I think ultimately this match might have just happened a little bit too soon for us in the season, because Gyökeres is still getting up to speed. Madueke is still adjusting to the team. We just signed Eze. So, I think if this had happened in 2 months, obviously we'd be up against Isak, and they'd have Gehi to bring on, and stuff like that. They'd be stronger as well. But, I think these players would be more acclimatized, and they would have kind of deepened their relationships on the pitch. And maybe Arteta would be more willing to use them sooner than the 65th minute. Like, something that I'm not worried about it just yet, but something that I really need to see improve upon soon is how often we get the ball to Gyökeres in dangerous positions. Do you know how many times he touched the ball in Liverpool's penalty area in this match? Twice.
Yeah. It's not great.
That's not
Two
great.
times.
Yeah.
That's bad.
And it goes back. This is the last thing I'll say about Martinelli, because I don't want to turn this into like the Comedy Central roast of Gabriel Martinelli. But like, that's why those situations where you don't give the ball to your striker when you can really piss me off, because as we've seen, you're not going to do anything with the ball. So give the ball to the guy who's going to shoot it immediately and has, the best right foot basically on the team. Maybe outside of Eze. But yeah, it's just a lot of this is on Arteta, but there are some things I'm just kind of, sympathetic to him about, regarding timing and kind of players' adjustments and, the injuries that we had.
One thing I would say is I think the whole argument now is, so we know who Gyökeres was when we signed him, and we know how he plays when we've seen him play, right? And I don't think he's necessarily been poor. I do think he's been isolated, and that's okay, because that means the system can be tweaked to make sure he isn't. But I do think one of the things is, if you know his strength is being like running the channels, creating space for others, but also trying to create space for himself, utilizing his pace. I do think he looks a little bit like leggy still, but that's okay. I think he'll come up to speed. Sometimes you have to let him go and do what he does best, and that's fight for it, right? So if you play the ball into space, let him go, run onto it, and fight for it, instead of trying to find the perfect pass. Sometimes you can never provide someone with the perfect pass, and obviously he's not Thierry Henry, and he's not Thierry Henry pacey, but that's one of the things that made Henry such a threat. And I despise him as a pundit, but it's one thing I would say that Carragher has never shied away from, is his admittance that he was terrified of Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
Because even if you had 3 or 4 steps on Henry, that was going to last about 0.5 seconds, because he was going to beat you for pace, fight you for the ball, and likely win it. And we saw it against, in some of his best moments, we saw those things. Again, him skinning Carragher, where Carragher had him for space. He wins it, blows by him. He did the same thing against Real Madrid on that famous solo run in the Bernabeu. So I'm not saying Gyökeres can be Thierry Henry, but also to have that confidence when you played Henry with not the most ideal ball, that you were going to put faith in the fact that he was at least going to fight for it, be direct, try to get onto it. Sometimes you have to just let Gyökeres do that. And I think there will be more moments this season where if we do put faith in that. I do think against Liverpool, there were moments where we tried and then we stopped. And that, for me, was kind of a bit of the frustrating thing. But I think we'll get better at it. But yeah, just overall little subtle tweaks here and there as players come up to speed. Again, I think you're right. Maybe match day 3 against Anfield, when not everybody is settled yet. Obviously, that matters. I would prefer it, I guess, now than match day one, because that could have been potentially worse. But overall, I do think all that matters for me now is that we got Old Trafford and Anfield out within the first 3 weeks of this season.
Yeah.
And that is a net positive. Even though we didn't win on the day, I'd rather just not deal with these grounds again. And now we don't have to. So I think for me that again, sometimes getting your hardest fixtures out of the way. And I said it before, and I'll pull up to City now. City have already lost twice this season, but they've lost twice in the first 3 matches. Yep. There's 35 matches to go, and we know how much quality City have. We know what kind of manager Pep is. There's nothing that might stop City from going on a 20 unmatched beaten run, and then all of a sudden losing 2 of the first 3 match days becomes wholly irrelevant. So sometimes getting slow starts don't mean you can't go on to win the league, but you take some of the power away from your ability to do it. Obviously,
Drew, that's a fantastic point, and I actually didn't really think about that too much. I did think about it, but I don't think the importance of getting it out of the way really set into me until right now. Because I'm thinking, as a player, I now know that I don't have to go to Old Trafford and I don't have to go to Anfield anymore, right? So
2 of the 3 hardest grounds to go to.
Hardest grounds in the league. In the league, I know now that I don't. And what does that mean, really, that I don't have to do that? Like, obviously, there's difficult fixtures, Bayern and all this in the Champions League and stuff like that. But that was always going to happen. But at least in the league now, I don't need to train for a game knowing that I have that looming at some point in the league. And I think that I don't know exactly the effect that will have, like tangible effect, but it's a non-zero one. And I do agree that even losing, I guess the silver lining here is that even losing, it's out of the way. It's out of the way early. We can get it out. We can move on. We can learn from it, and we can and that's it. We don't. It's not like this title-shattering, title hope thing that you get near the end of the season, where all of a sudden you have to we're neck and neck with Liverpool, and then now we have to beat them, right? I don't know. Maybe that's just me looking for a silver lining, but I think that's a really good point.
I don't know if Shem wanted to come in, but I agree. I think it's. I personally I would just rather not care anymore about it. Now we don't have to. I think it's there's not any other ground apart from, I guess, historically in recent seasons. I think maybe we don't enjoy going to St. James Park, but I don't think Newcastle are going to be the same beast for multiple reasons this season, obviously. I'm glad it's just kind of over. I'd rather just get over it. And again, it's not like we can look back at the Anfield performance and say we got absolutely destroyed and it was soul crushing, and then we have to rewrite the script. We lost 1-0 on a moment of magic in a match where we probably could have won. So I think there's more than enough positives to take away from a difficult away fixture to sort of kind of like boost the immune system, so to speak. So I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think this is a good chance to transition to kind of where we go from here. But before we do that, I just want to say Mascara was excellent. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of insane. It's kind of insane how good he was, in the sense that losing Saliba in the first minute of the game or whatever should be a much bigger talking point, but it's not, because first of all, what we're hearing is just his ankle and he's going to be okay, which is thank the Lord.
And he'll miss the France game, so even better.
Even better, but also because Mascara just came in and was just fantastic, I thought.
Yeah. People have been calling him Baby Rudiger, and honestly, I can see it.
Well, some of that's because people think they look alike, and they don't, but that's besides the point. I do think that kind of performance was impressive from him. I like the fact that he wasn't a talking point in the match, because it showed he just quietly did his job. Sometimes you don't want to be a talking point. I think he fit in seamlessly. I think we can probably expect similar from Nkapia, because he passes medical. But that's what you want. You want to have moments where, okay, Saka can't play, Madueke, Sleep had to come off, Mascara. If Gabriel's unfit, or if he needs a rest, Nkapia. That's the point that we've been driving at all along, where the reduction of quality is minimal. And we're not going to have to tweak how we play. There's confidence in the players we're bringing in. Say what you want about, I don't think Liverpool can say they're underdogs anymore. Liverpool going out and spending 500 million euros in one transfer window. But the reason why they're doing it is because they're trying to do the same thing, trying to up the floor and up the ceiling. They're just doing it in one window instead of two because they didn't spend last summer. So if you look at their business, it's the same thing as them spending $250 million in two windows, which is roughly what most clubs with money do in the first place. And they're kind of after that same need. Because now, if Isak isn't starting, they have Ekitike. That's a far better proposition for them than they were last season. So, yeah, I think we can look similarly about the business we did and move with confidence, for the rest of the season and beyond that. So,
Side note: I just got trolled by the Reddit, the Gunners subreddit. So someone had posted a picture of Zinchenko clapping, and it says Romano in brackets, and it says Alexander Zinchenko has said goodbye to his teammates today at London Colney. He's going home for the evening and will return tomorrow morning for training.
Yeah, I have plenty of things I'd love to say about Zinchenko, but I will not. But yeah, I was really impressed with Mosquera, and I just kind of wanted to shout him out before we kind of go into like a bigger picture discussion. I think he was great. I think if Saliba does miss any games, like if Saliba doesn't play against Nottingham Forest, honestly, I'm not worried because I think Mosquera showed enough to cope with that. I mean, he kept Ekitike quiet the whole game. Ekitike won 1 of 8 duels. No goals, no assists. Not even sure he had a shot on target.
I don't think he did.
No. So
and there was a time where when Saliba went down, we had Rob Holding come in. So that's
Drew knows my feelings on this.
That's progress. That's progress. That's team. That's squad building. That's progress. That's got to be lauded. That's good.
It should have been Kiwior. Anyway, yeah. So. Kind of moving on from the game itself, kind of into, we've got 35 matches left. Liverpool are at 9 points from 3 games. They've just signed Alexander Isak and Mark Gahey. In the meantime, Saka's out until maybe the Manchester City game. Odegaard hopefully will not worsen his injury during the international break. Eze will have another 2 weeks. I mean, he'll be with the England team, but, hopefully he'll at least have another week with the Arsenal team. Havertz is out, and we'll see what happens with Saliba. I'm really annoyed about the injuries. I don't think it's worth it. Well, we can have a discussion about the injuries if you want, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is, yes, we're not in a great position right now. We're not in the position that we wanted 3 games into the season. But I don't think I saw anything in this match that tells me that, we don't have a chance. That we don't even have a good chance. I think we have a pretty good chance this season. But just, I kind of wanted to get you guys' thoughts on, how are you feeling about our prospects this season, and with Liverpool having taken the lead at the top of the table and now signed pretty much the best striker in the Premier League. Do you think that makes them favorites? And do you think that... I mean, is it season over for us, I guess is my question.
Season over? No.
It's not season over.
So the reason I phrase it like that, by the way...
We still get to not win the Champions League this season, remember?
The reason I phrase it, because I've had multiple people in my mentions be like, well, season's over.
No.
That's crazy. This is the thing. That's crazy to me. Like,
no.
I just feel like too many people are still... Every time something like this happens, whether if it's an injury... or a result that fans don't want because fans think going invincible every season is what you do because of video game culture, that the season is over. No, and the injuries, I feel, again, the whole reason why we've gone out and done what we've done in the market is to react to injuries. And yeah, you can question the kind of ridiculous luck we have that this many senior players that are important to the side are out already 3 match days in. The season isn't over, and thankfully all the prognoses on all the players are positive. Sans Kai, of course, because he needed surgery. But apart from that, I just don't see how fans could. What do they want at this point? Sometimes luck's with you, and sometimes it isn't. And it's funny because I think Saliba going down so early was almost kind of foreboding for the result in a way. Not that we played poorly because in his absence, it's just kind of just like, well, you're not going to have a good day in the end of it, but you'll see why later kind of thing. It's just, yeah, no, I think one of the reasons why I get so frustrated now is I think tropes like that annoy me. Like, the season's over. The season is not over because you're dealing with like fitness issues. This is why you have a squad. I just don't even want to like address that because that just annoyed the shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie. That's just like, to me, that's just like, it's just such a silly thing to say. It really is. And then people are like questioning like the medical staff and stuff like. Sometimes, like, so when it comes to Saliba, like if he had a tweak prior and we still want and they assessed him and thought he was okay to continue and he tried and he just couldn't. That's not like negligence, like, you know. Sometimes
he got injured in the warm up. It happens.
And also, players play injured far more than fans realize. That's normal. Most players are carrying even small things throughout the vast majority of the season because that's the nature of professional sport. Do you know how many times like hockey players have played with like broken fingers, like a hairline fracture in their shin? It's like professional athletes play hurt all the time, like. But unfortunately, like, and sometimes they come through it, or sometimes they exacerbate it and it gets worse. There's a thing that came out that Lucy Bronze was playing with a fracture in her leg during the Women's Euro. Still soldiered on and finished and made it to the final. It could have been worse though. If her luck wasn't with her, she could have made the injury worse in the tournament, and then she'd have been out for even a longer period of time. It's just one of those things.
So what you're saying is Martinelli has 2 broken legs, and that's why he's playing.
Maybe he's had 2 broken legs for the last 2 seasons, and that explains everything. You know what? Something we should look into. Something we should take a deep dive in because maybe John's onto something. But yeah, no, I just think it's so early to say the season is over, and it drives me absolutely insane because I don't see a single City fan that's saying their season is over because they've had a poor start. They had a poor start last season, and look how good they. I think it extended, but you knew they were going to come good eventually, and then they turned it around. Like, it's too early for this kind of stuff. Like, it's too early for this in the day in the morning as well. I don't care that it's almost noon. Like, stop with this.
Part of me is kind of happy too, in a weird way, and it's definitely a rationalization and a little bit of sour grapes. But you know, maybe we do tend to operate pretty well when the pressure's off a little bit more. And I'm happy if now we are not the favorites to win the league and Liverpool are, and they have to deal with that for the next 35 games. And you know,
I mean, I agree. I'm glad that we're kind of in a position where everyone can walk into practice after the international break and say, all right, let's put as many points on the board as we can and see what happens, right? I will say, I don't think the media is going to put nearly as much pressure on Liverpool as they would other teams.
They won't. 100%
Yeah.
they won't. Despite them, again, spending $500 million in a single window, there's not going to be anything about, well, no, they have to win. They have to win every trophy imaginable now because they just shelled out £500 million or £500 million euro. You'll never hear that talking point at any point this season. So
yeah, if Liverpool finished 5th with this team, it would be fine for anybody who is on Sky Sports. They would come up with their reasons for it. They say, oh, Isak, he stubbed his pinky game week 5, and that's so tough to play with, stuff like that. But I am just glad that we just kind of get to focus on ourselves now, and there's not any of this, Arsenal spent so much money, they have to win the league this season. I think at that point, making that argument's pretty disingenuous, if not outright stupid. So, I am happy about that, and kind of just like looking outward. There's so much to play for. I don't think I could ever connect to this idea of the season being over after 3 games.
No way.
Even if like I can't think, like, even if we had double the injuries that we had, I just can't connect to this idea that it's over. But yeah, like we have a deep squad now. We have a bunch of players that I'm really excited about. Yes, we still have a couple guys in this team who I wish we could have moved on this summer, like Zinchenko, like Martinelli. We'll see what happens with some of the other guys. But yeah, I think all in all, we have a bunch of talent in this team, and it's just about making sure that players stay fit enough where they can make an impact, and it's about getting back out there and really maximizing the remaining matches that we have. So I want 3 points against Forest, and then when when City come to the Emirates, they might be reeling still, and I want to take advantage of that and kick their asses. So it's still all there on the table, and I just think the grass is always greener for people. I think sometimes folks don't kind of. I think it's going under the radar that because Arsenal have picked up all these injuries, that doesn't mean that other teams are not going to pick up a bunch of injuries as well. Like what happens to Liverpool if like Isak and McAllister and Van Dijk go down for a couple months, and then Salah has to go to the African Nations Cup. Does that not affect things for them?
Probably not. Historically, they'll figure it out. They're kind of crazy.
They'll get 2 penalties a game for the month.
Penalties a game. They'll all of a sudden some 16-year-old will come and win the game every week, and then it's like, all right, bro, the plot armor FC is just unreal sometimes.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a good chance that luck will just bail them out anyway. But if that luck does run out, all I'm saying is it's a very long season, and a lot of things can happen. Things can look very different in a month from now. So, we'll see what happens on that front. I was talking to my brother yesterday on the phone, and honestly, I kind of came away from it just really, with it really dawning on me how much like the online discourse really just makes a lot of this quite miserable, to be honest. My brother's a Liverpool fan, got off Twitter years ago, and we were just having a chat about the match and the Isak signing, and we were actually very much on the same page. He and I both agreed that the match was very even. Bosley just thumped in a worldie of a free kick. He doesn't think that the Isak signing really makes all that much sense. Like, his exact words to me were, okay, what are we going to do with Ekitike now? Where do we put Wirtz? Like, are we going to bench McAllister, or are we going to bench Szoboszlai to put Wirtz into the, So, it was a fun chat. But one thing I said to him was, we finally have a team that I'm looking forward to watching every single week. And there are so many players on this team that I want to see, and I want to watch, and I want to root for, and I kind of want to follow their journey in an Arsenal shirt. And I just think people forget sometimes that's a big part of it. I mean, I want to win, and I'll be extremely disappointed if this season ends trophyless. But at the end of the day, I don't know, man. I'm just still really excited about this team, and I can't connect to this mentality about not feeling that way.
I think sometimes I'm curious on John's thoughts too, and it's a really good thing to bring up. I think sometimes fans, when you are supporting of a particular club or franchise or whatever, that comes with so much expectation that automatically becomes fan focused. You forget what actual fandom is about. It's not just about winning the league. If we don't win the league, my mood's going to be sour for the 3 months in the offseason or whatever. You have to remember what connected you to the club, what connected you to the players, what brought you, the friendships you formed with it, the moments that the highs and lows. That's what supporting any sports franchise or a football club is really all about. And as someone who I grew up a Yankee fan because I'm from the Bronx. I grew up a huge New York Rangers fan because I'm from New York. And those are two of the historical big franchise in MLB and the NHL, and there's been a lot of down moments, but there's also a lot of big moments. And the thing that always frustrated me about fans and those fan bases, similar to Arsenal, is that it stopped being about connecting to the club or the team. It stopped being about getting to go to Yankee Stadium or the Garden or those fun moments you have. It's all about, well, if we don't win every single night or every single weekend, and we don't win the league or the Stanley Cup or the World Series every single season, well then I'm going to be miserable about it. That to me is not what fandom is. And I do think there are moments when you come from smaller fan bases, you almost appreciate proper fandom more. Yeah. For example, one of my colleagues that went football, he's a huge Crystal Palace supporter. Been a Palace supporter all his life, and I think that's why he's savored their success last season so much, because like he's never had anything to celebrate about as a Palace fan at any point in his his fandom of that club for his entire life, and he's had lots of down moments. He's seen awesome moments, like, so they remain more connected to the big things, I feel like, and it's not about expectations. It's about, it's another season, we go again. I can't wait to be reconnected with the club, and that happiness isn't tied to if they win the league or not, or if they win anything or not. It's frustrating to me. So
I think that was beautifully said, and I will say though that part of, and this is historically, being an Arsenal fan comes with a certain standard and expectation for success.
Yeah.
Right, and we're clearly, in terms of the playing, and we are a dominating force in world football right now. All right, maybe we're not getting the silverware from it, but we are absolutely a team that is feared by opposition managers, by opposition players. We're a team that people want to come play for. That's something that needs to be taken into consideration. That's something to be proud of as well. But there does come a time when those expectations bleed into what it does mean to be, I think, for the most part, an Arsenal fan. There's no right or wrong on how to be a fan or an Arsenal fan. But I think historically we are a club that that strives for success, and that includes silverware. And there needs to come a point in time where we get silverware. And when that does happen, we need to be happy about it. All right, and that could be the FA Cup. Hopefully it's a little bit more, but we need to be I understand why maybe that's not going to be enough for some people. Like if we just win the FA Cup this season, I think that there's going to be a lot of discourse. Well, if we don't win anything, certainly there's going to be a lot of discourse. But if we win, the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, there's going to be a lot of conversation there. And I think where the fandom comes in is that we need to still be happy when that happens. As much as we want more, maybe, if that is what happens, we need to be happy.
Yeah,
I'm saying that. I'm saying that kind of to myself too, because I'm gonna have to remember that when it does happen, because I certainly want more, and that's part of being an Arsenal fan. We're conditioned to be a successful club, to win trophies, major honors, major titles, and we haven't won that league in so long. We've never won the Champions League. It's painful to be an Arsenal supporter sometimes because of that.
I don't disagree, but I also think at the same time, I always question why fans say that to not win Champions League is a failure. We've literally never won it. You can't put expectations on a trophy you've never won. That's actually incredibly difficult to win. You can at the Premier League, of course. I think it's a great point about the FA Cup. It's funny to me because if you look at most other clubs, even big clubs across not just Europe, but even in Brazil, Argentina, whatever, if you win your nation's prime cup competition, that's still seen as some sort of relative success. Fans will still celebrate that loudly, and you should. So the fact that there's a lot of fans that wouldn't celebrate an FA Cup win loudly if we won it because we didn't win the league, that's also a bit frustrating to me. Also because, we're not, A, the Premier League is hard to win, but B, we're also not the favorite to win it. So if we don't win it, did it really change the preseason expectation? No, I think for me, all I want to see is we're up for the fight for the league, right? We're in and around the conversation. If we don't win it, did we get closer? Obviously, I want to win the league, but I can't say we have to win the league. I don't think anyone has to win anything. You know what I mean?
That's my tinfoil hat moment. Is that all of that is by design, by the media, to push capitalistic narratives on getting money, revenue, and support for the league itself and for the Champions League.
And fans are eating it up because there's very few clubs that go into a season and you give them a 90% chance of winning the league, or that have the expectation of winning it. And we've talked about this before on the podcast numerous times. You can count on one hand how many clubs actually have that justifiable expectation of they have to win the league every season. Most clubs do not have that expectation.
No.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And yet, when the team that does have it in the Premier League starts the way they do, there's no pressure on them.
Yeah. I think people forget that the path to success is paved with disappointment. I think Liverpool have been in the running for the league for 11 years, basically, over a decade. How many times have they won it? Twice.
Yeah.
Right? And this is our 4th season competing for the league. So, like, on average, if we're supposed to be Liverpool, we should be winning the league once every 5 years. So and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, let's write the season off. But what I'm saying is the key to winning trophies is to consistently be in the running for it for several years at a time, or for as long as possible, and then eventually things will break for you so that you can win it, right? Champions League, I think this especially applies to. Champions League, you just have to be one of the best teams in Europe for a few seasons on end, and then hopefully you get the right matchups in the knockout stages. You play teams at the right time of the year. Maybe things break for you a little bit on the pitch in terms of calls or in terms of lucky bounces or things like that, and boom, Champions League title. Premier League, same thing. Premier League, you have to be in the running for it year on year on year, and hope that just one of those years, the way that Liverpool got it, 2 of the teams you're up against have catastrophic injury issues, the referees decide to take a shine to you a couple times, you play teams at the right points in the season. You play Newcastle when they don't have Isak. You play Arsenal, when half their back 4 is out injured, stuff like that. And if you were just there for long enough, you will win something. So people just really underestimate how much luck has to do with all this. What we're doing right now, we are laying the foundation so that we are in the running, right? But outside of that, it really comes down to having the opportunity present itself to us and us taking it. So, this expectation of we have to win the title this year or it's a failure, we'll see. I don't even think you can answer that question until the season's played out, and then you have to look back at it and be like, did that feel like a failure? Did that feel like we had a good season? So, it's the whole thing's really disingenuous, and I mean that's why, I'm kind of sad about the state of online fandom, because I'm in a group text with a guy, and he was bragging about how he turned to a friend of his during the Leeds game and said something to the effect of, "Oh yeah, we scored 5 goals, but like, did we really create that many open play chances?" Yeah.
Does it matter? You just
said that shit with a straight face, and I was like, "You have lost." And like, he's like a very classic, like, I'm English, so I'm a better fan than you. But it's like, you have lost the essence of what it means to be a fan. Yeah. If you are asking that question during a 5-0 win.
And that's kind of my point. I think fans now, and this is why I get frustrated, because I've said this numerous times. I'm not saying this guy falls in that category, but I think a lot of fans do. So much expectation around actual football has now come from like virtual football. There are too many fans that think like actual football is FIFA or Football Manager, as to where winning 5-0 is not enough. I had to have 12 XG. I need to have 56 shots on goal. I had to look like the performance. It's like, if you win 5-0, there's no other conversation talking point for me. You just won 5-0 comfortably against a side who other clubs in our bracket might slip up against. You never know. We've seen it before. United almost lost to Burnley. Case in point. Yeah. And people think Burnley are going to go down this season, and a lot of people think Leeds might actually stay up. So it's, again, that's crazy to me. I can't believe I just heard that. That to me is, that's at that point that's just bizarre.
There are Arsenal fans sending in that graphic of Arsenal having like the 2nd or 3rd lowest XG in the league right now. And it's like, we went to Old Trafford and Anfield as 2 of our first games of the season.
Right, but also look at what we held. This is the lowest XG Liverpool has had since 2021.
Yeah.
So where's the counterpoint? The counterpoint is, yes, like, our XG was low at Anfield. Liverpool's was lower than ours at Anfield, and they scored on a shot worth like 0.5 XG or 0.05 XG. So it's just like, at that point, yeah.
The funniest thing to me is, I think it was either Jamie Carragher or or Roy Keane, who said this on Sky.
Of course it was.
And they said something to the effect of like, oh, well, Liverpool found a way to win that game, and that's the stuff of champions. But then for Old Trafford, when we won 1-0 at Old Trafford, it was just like, oh, Arsenal, very concerning that they couldn't find a performance there.
I mean, to an extent, I agree with that notion that Liverpool found a way to win that one, and that is what Liverpool. And I tweeted that out at the time. I was like, "Look, this is why Liverpool were champions, right?" And
I don't think Liverpool found a way to win. I think Szoboszlai found a way to win it for them.
Well,
that's very, very different.
I mean, yes and no. I think that Liverpool, you can't really separate them. I mean, Szoboszlai was a player for Liverpool that was playing on the day, and that they won that free kick.
Yeah, I don't think
and it was his. He's practiced that free kick. He's one of their players.
True, but was that Liverpool's mentality, or was that just a moment of pure magic?
Well, my point is that a champion has a team where you have players that can just pull something out of the hat in a big moment, in a big game like that, and that's exactly what Szoboszlai did. I don't want to take away from what they did, because I think that there's truth in it being champions. But everything else, I totally agree that And I started this entire podcast off with my thoughts on the narrative being completely lopsided on how we're looking at Arsenal versus Liverpool when they should have played better than they did at Anfield. Those are games though that you want to win when you're not playing well. You're at home and you're not playing well, and you just come up with some kind of moment of brilliance, like Rice at the Etihad, or at Real Madrid rather.
So that's kind of my point, though. Like, Liverpool did find a way to win, but didn't we also find a way to win at Old Trafford? Does that not?
Yeah. And if we're playing I don't want to forget it, but I was saying because playing us versus playing Man United are very different. I think things. It's hard to take ourselves out. Like, oh, we have to play Arsenal is kind of a scary thing, but we have to play United, not so much. But yeah, I think the overall premise is true, though. I think that at the end of the day, you have to the narrative against Arsenal is you have to just kind of it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. That's all it is. You have to laugh because it's so blatant and obvious, and no one cares. And that's just we talked about being an Arsenal fan. That's part of it. Like George Graham historically said, people hate us. That's it.
Yeah, I think
people hate us. And that's our history.
I think the key to surviving this season as a fan, if you're not someone who wants to just consistently engage in kind of negative, self-hating talk about Arsenal, is you have to really limit the takes that you take in from online and be very, very careful about the sources of media that you choose to consume.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. In fact, just get off social media altogether. No one should be on social media anymore.
That's probably very true.
Let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with Arsenal. That is the world. We should all be off social media.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, these, sci-fi movies, they don't have any social media in them. Societies that exist hundreds and thousands of years after this one, apparently, no social media. And I think that says something. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no Twitter or Instagram in Star Wars.
The last time Arsenal won the league, no social media. So maybe, if we get rid of social media, we can actually win this damn league.
Well, there you go. And I think if Arsenal fans got off social media, it would collapse because where's the revenue coming from? So, tell you what, we'll go ahead and knock it on the bow here. Unless is there anything else that you guys wanted to hit before we get out of here?
No.
Hope no one gets injured on the international break, please.
Yeah, that's a good closing point. I fully agree with that.
Yep. Please play at walking pace, gentlemen, when you are out there representing your nations, and hopefully we make it through the next 2 weeks unscathed. So we'll leave it there. We'll be back with you guys later on this week to chat about any news. I do want to try to do an all-time Arsenal 11 draft at some point during this international break. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So we'll talk about scheduling that. But yeah, so we'll see you again. Don't worry, we're not going to vanish during the international break. And thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going on this journey with us, and we hope you enjoyed it. So we will talk to you later this week after Arsenal conquer the international break. Until then, take care, get your mind out of the gunner, and we'll talk to you soon. So bye. Bye.